Welcome everyone. So in this video I'll be discussing further about the object-oriented way of creating plots using Matplotlib. So in our previous video we had created two subplots, axis 1 and axis 2, by providing the values of the place where we wanted the plots to be plotted at using the add axis function. And then we plotted the values x comma y and y comma x, where x and y are these values, so this and this. So now let's talk about a more handier way of creating subplots by using the Matplotlib's subplots function. So for this I'll need to be unpacking a tuple. So fig comma axis equals to plt.subplots, the function that you want to be calling for creating the subplots, and then and rows equals to 1, which is the number of rows, and then and cols equals to 2 which is the number of columns that you want for your subplot. So if I run this, you can see that on a single row I've got 2 columns, and on both of the columns I've got 2 plots. So if you want to see what fig and axis looks like, let me call them individually. So fig is the actual chart over here, the actual plot, and then axis is a numpy array of the 2 subplots. So this subplots function allows us to use normal indexing on the axis numpy array to plot our subplots. So let me explain that now with an example. So if I provide an axis 0, so which is this first subplot where the index is 1 for the numpy array, and then plot out x comma y, and if I run this, you can see that I've got my line over here which has been plotted out on the first subplot. Then I can do the same for axis 1, which is the second subplot, and then plot out y comma x. Now if I run this, you can see that I've got y comma x plotted out. So now you can also call other functions like axis 0 and then dot set underscore title like you had done before, and then let me pass first over here, and for the second subplot let me pass set underscore title as the string second. So if I run this, you can see that I've got 2 titles for 2 subplots respectively. So the thing that I like about this subplots function is that it actually lets me iterate through this axis numpy array in order to create my plots very quickly. So I'll explain that. So let me create a for loop. So for a in axis, where axis is a numpy and the array. So what I can do is just call a.plot, which means that for every iteration in axis, so a.plot x comma y. So if I run this right now, you can see that both of my subplots have got the same values plotted on them. So what you can also do is use conditions over here. So for example, if 5 modulus 2 is equals to 0, and then if that's true, let a.plot be x comma y, and else let it be a.plot y comma x. So as we know, 5 modulo 2, which gives out the remainder as 1, is not equals to 0. So if I run this, y comma x should be plotted on both of our subplots. So there you go. And instead of just writing 5% is 2, I can put assign a variable and increment the variable number so that I get different results every time I iterate through the numpy array. So one last thing, let me point out the plt.titleout function. So let me remove that code. Instead, let me comment out that code and then run this. So here we go, we got the first initial subplots. Now if I change the number of rows to 3, I get 3 rows of 2 subplots on each columns. So here you can see that the plots are actually overlapping the values on the x-axis and some on the y-axis. So for this I can just call out plt.tight layout, and you can see the difference visibly. So here you can see the plots have been plotted out much better. So just keep that in mind, that there is a plt.tight layout function which solves this error quite quickly. So now let's move on to figure size, aspect ratios, and DPI of your plots. So let me just create a figure using the plt.figure, and then as the attributes, let me pass in the fig size equals to, and here I'm passing the width of the plot and the height of the plot, and I'm also going to be passing the DPI, which is dots per inch, and then let me put this value as 100 for now, and let me create the axes. I don't know what's that, axes or axis, I think it's axis. So let me create the axis as ax equals to fig dot add underscore axis, and let me pass in 0, 0, 1, 1, and then let me plot out x, y on this axis. So x, y. So if I run this, there you go. We have a plot where the width is 3 and the height is 2. Now if I change the width value to suppose 6, and if I run this, you can see that I've got the width increased. So you can change the figure size by using this parameter. Now you can do the same with subplots also. So if I put plt.subplots over here and then pass in my fixed size, I can also remove the DPI over here because there is a default DPI for this and also for the figure. So now if I want to plot the axis, I can just use fig axis, and then axis 0 dot plot x y, and axis 1 dot plot y x. So if I run this right now, axis subplot does not support indexing. Oh, I forgot to pass in the rows, number of rows and the number of columns. So now if I run this, here you can see that I've got 2 subplots, and I can change the figure size for this too. So if I put 9 over here, and if I run this, the width has been increased. So this is how you change the figure size in Matplotlib plot. So now let's talk about saving the figure that you have made right now, which is the fig. Let me call fig. So fig is the chart that we have just plotted out, and now let's save this chart. So what you can do is call fig dot save. Let me press tab to autocomplete. So that's save fig, and then what you're going to be providing is the name of the file that you want to save. So Matplotlib supports the extensions JPG, PNG, SVG, PDF, and so on. So in order to save your file as PNG, for example, my underscore chart, let me put that as the name, and then I'll provide in the file extension, which is PNG, and for JPEG you can put JPG and so on. So let me run PNG for right now, and if I run this, my chart has been saved in the directory where I had my Jupyter notebook. So now let's talk about legends. So to illustrate why legends are important, let me create another figure. So plt.figure, and then let me create axis equals to fig dot add underscore axis, and then let me provide in the value for my axis. So 1 1, and then axis dot plot x y, and axis dot plot y x on the same figure. So I've got both of these plots over here. So if I look at the chart alone, I can't differentiate which plot is which. So For this I'll be needing a legend to indicate which curve of this line, so which color of this curve represents which plot. So for this is a two-step process. First you're going to be calling axis.legend, and this alone doesn't plot out the legends. So what you'll need to be doing is supplying a label for the plots. So for this, let me put out label equals to x versus y, and for this let me put the label as y versus x. So if I run that, now you can see that I've got my legend over there. So you can change the location of this legend by the lock parameter. So if you check out the MATLAB documentation for this legend function, you can see that there are various numbers that you can put in to change the position of the legend in your plot. So for now let me put 0, which is the best plot. So if I run this, the best place for my legend is on the top right, which was already made at first. So if I put over here 2 and then run this, you can see that it has moved to the upper left. So just check out the MATLAB documentation and you'll get the value where you want to put the legend over. So you can also use another method, which is by supplying in the percentage of the left margin and the percentage of the bottom margin. So we have discussed this earlier while creating this add axis. So if I run this right now, you can see that it's over there, and if I put 0.5 over here, it moves a little bit more to the right. So this is how you can create legends. Now I'll just be keeping this at 0 for now. So if I run this right now, so that's top right, and I'll think I'll stop at this much for today. So if you guys have any questions or any requests, just leave it out in the comment sections and I'll get to them. So that's it for now. Ta-da!